how to use the Neville technique to create a peaceful baby and a peaceful birth. Today, you will understand exactly how to use your emotional state, your imagination, and your nervous system to shape the way your baby develops inside the womb and the way your body responds during birth. Within the next few minutes, you'll learn how Neville's method becomes a practical tool for mothers, supported by neuroscience and perinatal psychology, capable of calming your inner world and imprinting peace on your baby's nervous system. If you leave now, you'll continue experiencing pregnancy in reaction mode, instead of intentionally shaping the emotional environment your baby is already absorbing every day. What makes this video different is that it doesn't treat Neville as something mystical or distant. It treats his method as a biological reality. Your baby is reading your internal state. Your uterus responds to your emotions. Your nervous system communicates with your baby's nervous system through hormones, blood flow, breath rhythm, and muscle tone. This means that the images you hold, the emotions you sustain, and the states you repeatedly enter are creating the first emotional home your baby will ever know. In the next minutes, I'll guide you through a clear path: how your emotions affect fetal development, how your inner experience becomes the baby's sensory world, how the imaginal act becomes a form of anticipatory neurocoding, how your birth can shift when your emotional signature changes, and how to create an environment that strengthens the feeling of the wish fulfilled that Neville talks about. Everything you'll learn here is grounded in maternal psychology, environmental design, and spiritual principles adapted to the maternal experience. This introduction alone already shows something essential. Your inner state is not just shaping your experience of pregnancy, it is shaping your baby's. And when you learn to use Neville's method with intention, you create coherence inside your body, and coherence becomes the first gift you ever offer your child. 1. The science behind Neville for pregnancy. Neville Goddard insisted that a single imaginal act held with conviction has the power to reorganize reality. What he called the imaginal act is what neuroscience now recognizes as anticipatory neurocoding. During pregnancy, this process becomes even stronger because the maternal brain enters a state of heightened plasticity. Your thoughts, emotions, and internal images are no longer contained inside you. They become signals your baby receives and translates as information about the world they are preparing to enter. Research from UCLA shows that the baby synchronizes with the mother's emotional state through direct physiological communication. When a mother enters a state of calm, her heart rhythm shifts into coherence. This coherence is transmitted to the baby through blood flow, hormones, and the rhythm of her breathing. The Heart Math Institute confirms that a regulated maternal heartbeat stabilizes the fetal heart pattern. This means Neville's teachings about assuming the feeling translate biologically into the mother creating a consistent state that the baby can rely on. Perinatal neuroscience adds another dimension: maternal emotional imprinting. This refers to the way the womb responds to the mother's mental and emotional activity. A study from the University of Colorado demonstrated that when the mother visualizes safety or calm, the uterine environment reflects this state through lowered cortisol levels and smoother uterine muscle tone. In simple terms, your emotional field becomes your baby's first environment. The baby does not interpret images, but they interpret the chemistry those images generate. This is why Neville's method is far more than positive thinking. When a mother imagines a peaceful baby or a harmonious birth scene, her brain releases signals that travel through her entire body. The uterus softens, blood vessels dilate, stress hormones decrease. The baby receives a message: this world is safe. In the same way, when a mother imagines herself holding her calm newborn, the body responds as if the moment is already happening. Muscles relax, breathing deepens, and the emotional field shifts into coherence. This is not imagination in the abstract. It is physiology responding to consciousness. And your baby is inside that physiology every second. 2. The mother as the first environment. A baby does not live inside the womb. A baby lives inside the mother's emotional field. Everything you feel, everything you process, everything you sustain internally becomes the atmosphere your baby develops in. This is not poetic language. It is biology. Neuroscientists at the Harvard Center on the Developing Child have shown that a mother's emotional patterns alter fetal neural connectivity. The baby is already learning the world long before birth, and the world they perceive is the mother's inner state. When we talk about Neville's method in pregnancy, we are not talking about manifesting events. We are talking about shaping the emotional environment your baby is wired into. The maternal nervous system becomes the baby's first blueprint. If the mother enters calm, the baby registers calm. If the mother enters tension, the baby registers tension. This doesn't mean you must be serene at all times. It means that your dominant emotional signature is what the baby internalizes as their baseline. Perinatal psychology describes this phenomenon as affective entrainment. It means the baby entrains to the mother's emotional rhythm the same way two tuning forks vibrate together when placed side by side. Studies show that when a mother practices regular visualization or emotional regulation, babies tend to show more stable rhythms after birth. Predictable sleep cycles, lower sensory reactivity, faster self-regulation. These are not coincidences. They are the direct result of an environment crafted inside the mother. In clinical settings, midwives and perinatal therapists often observe similar patterns. Mothers who consistently sustain emotional coherence, whether through breathing work, visualization, or spiritual practices, tend to experience more peaceful transitions after birth. Their babies arrive with a different tone, less startled, more connected, more receptive, not because the mother manifested a perfect child, but because she created a coherent internal field for that child to develop within. Understanding yourself as the first environment changes everything. It shifts the experience of pregnancy from fear to intention. It shows you that what you feel is not just happening inside you, it is shaping someone who is learning the world through you. This awareness alone already begins to reorganize your pregnancy from the inside out. 3. The emotional signature, Neville's real secret. Neville taught that the true creative force is not the image you visualize, but the feeling that accompanies it. For most people, this is abstract. For a mother, this is biology. The baby does not respond to the picture in your mind. The baby responds to the emotional signature that picture generates in your body. This is why the feeling of the wish fulfilled becomes the most powerful tool during pregnancy. Your dominant emotional tone becomes the baby's first language. When a mother imagines a peaceful newborn in her arms, the body responds instantly. Breathing slows, muscles soften, heart rhythm steadies. The nervous system shifts from alertness to safety. This shift is not symbolic, it is chemical. Hormones change, blood flow changes, uterine tone changes. The baby reads these signals as information about the world they are entering. A peaceful internal field teaches the baby you are safe here. A tense internal field teaches stay alert. This is not about blame. It is about understanding influence. Neville described this as entering the state of the wish fulfilled. In neuropsychology, it is known as state-dependent signaling. When you access the emotion of the desired future, your brain begins to operate as if that future is already unfolding. This reorganizes neural pathways and sends a cascade of signals through your whole system. During pregnancy, this cascade shapes the baby's sensory world. The baby feels the mother integrating calm, softness, and confidence long before birth. To make this practical, you use something I call the 3-breath entry. It is a simple portal into the emotional signature you want to sustain. First breath, release the physical tension. Second breath, access the emotion you would feel if your peaceful newborn were already in your arms. Third breath, hold that emotion for a brief moment so your body has time to register it.
15 seconds of coherence can shift the hormonal environment inside the womb. This technique works because the baby is not waiting for birth to understand the world. They are learning it now. They are learning it through your chemistry, your breath patterns, your rhythms. When the mother enters coherence, even for short intervals, the baby receives stability. They receive predictability. They receive peace, not as an idea, but as a sensory state. This is the real secret Neville was pointing to. The feeling creates the form. In pregnancy, the feeling shapes the baby. 4. How to apply Neville to the baby's nervous system. Neville's teachings become profoundly practical during pregnancy when you understand that imagination is not just a mental picture, it is a physiological event. When you imagine a scene vividly enough for your body to respond, your baby receives that response as sensory data.
This is why the most effective way to use Neville's technique in pregnancy is to turn the final scene into a sensory experience the baby can feel through your body. What you feel, they feel. What you stabilize, they internalize. To make this real, you use what I call the sensory final scene. Instead of visualizing an image from the outside, you step inside the moment as if it were happening now. You imagine the room where you hold your newborn. You sense the temperature. You feel the weight of the baby resting calmly against your chest. You notice the softness of their breath. You feel your own body relaxed, grounded, and present. Your nervous system responds immediately because the brain cannot distinguish an imagined experience from a lived one. It releases the same chemistry either way. Neuroscientific studies on mental rehearsal confirm that the body mirrors the states created by imagination. Heart rate slows, cortisol drops, oxytocin rises, blood flow to the uterus becomes smoother, muscle tension softens. These changes are not subtle. They create an emotional and physiological field that the baby experiences as safety. Fetal behavior studies show that when a mother enters a regulated state, the baby's movements become more fluid, heart rate becomes more stable, and stress markers decrease. This is why Neville's method becomes powerful in pregnancy. Your baby responds to your internal environment long before birth. When you imagine holding your calm newborn, your body enters the physiology of that moment. When you imagine breathing in sync with your baby, your breath becomes slower and deeper. When you imagine peace, you become peace. Your baby learns the world through you. There is another layer to this: emotional predictability. Babies in utero show greater calm when the mother's internal state is consistent. Consistency doesn't mean perfection. It means returning to coherence again and again, even after moments of stress. Each time you practice the sensory final scene, you reinforce a pattern. Your baby learns that emotional safety is not fragile. It is repeated. It is anchored. It is reliable. This method does not require long sessions. 30 seconds of embodied imagination can shift your internal field. Neville always said the imaginal act should feel natural. In pregnancy, it becomes natural the moment your body responds, and your baby feels that response in real time. 5. Using Neville to shape a peaceful birth. Birth is not only a physical event. It is an emotional and neurological experience shaped by the mother's internal state. The uterus is one of the most emotionally responsive organs in the entire body. It reacts to fear, tension, and overwhelm with the same intensity that it reacts to calm, confidence, and inner safety. This is why Neville's technique becomes especially powerful as you approach birth. The emotional signature you sustain directly influences how your body opens, how your breath flows, and how your baby descends. Researchers from the Oxford Birth Psychology Unit have shown that emotional tension during labor increases adrenaline levels, which can interrupt contractions, slow cervical dilation, and create a stop-start rhythm in labor progression. The body doesn't do this because it is malfunctioning. It does it because the emotional field signals not safe.
That same research shows that when the mother accesses states of calm expectation, what Neville calls the assumption of the fulfilled wish, the body responds with smoother contractions and more coordinated uterine activity. This is not mystical. It is physiology aligning with consciousness. To use Neville for birth, you don't imagine a perfect scenario. You imagine a coherent one. You step into the emotional state you would naturally feel if your birth were unfolding with ease. You imagine your body opening with trust instead of fear. You imagine breathing steadily instead of bracing. You imagine your baby descending in peace, not in urgency. The goal is not to control the birth. The goal is to shape the emotional environment your body responds to. When a mother enters this emotional signature, her entire physiology shifts. Oxytocin rises, adrenaline drops, the pelvic floor softens, the muscles of the uterus coordinate more efficiently, heart rate steadies, breathing deepens. These changes create a physical pathway that supports birth instead of fighting it. Neville's method becomes a way of teaching your body what safety feels like so it can open without resistance. Clinical observations from doulas and midwives show that mothers who practice emotional coherence through visualization, breathwork, or spiritual techniques tend to progress through labor more fluidly. Not because they avoid intensity, but because their bodies are not working against the emotional field. The birth experience is shaped by the internal rhythm the mother sustains.
When she returns to the feeling of peace, even between contractions, the body finds its natural intelligence again. Using Neville for birth is about embodying the final state. My baby arrives in peace, and my body responds with trust. This emotional blueprint becomes the compass your physiology follows. Your baby feels it, your body mirrors it, and birth begins to unfold with the coherence you've been cultivating from within. 6. Environmental Neville. The space must match the feeling. Neville always emphasized that the inner state is the true creative force. But during pregnancy, the outer environment becomes a silent amplifier of that inner state. Your nervous system is continually responding to the space that surrounds you. Light, texture, temperature, color, and even the arrangement of objects influence your emotional tone. And because your baby is living inside your emotional field, the environment that shapes you also shapes them. This is why using Neville's technique is not only about imagination, it is about aligning your physical space with the emotional signature you want to sustain. Environmental psychology shows that low, diffused lighting reduces limbic activation and helps the body move into a parasympathetic state. This is the state where birth hormones thrive and where the baby experiences the mother as a steady, regulated environment. Harsh lighting sends the opposite signal, increasing alertness, tension, and sensory overload. When a mother adjusts her lighting, choosing warm, dimmer tones, her nervous system softens, and the baby receives that softness as emotional safety. Textures also influence the emotional field. Natural materials such as cotton, linen, wood, and wool send grounding signals through the sensory system. Synthetic, shiny, or rigid textures elevate stimulation and keep the body in semi-alert. Studies in environmental neurodesign show that tactile comfort lowers cortisol and increases oxytocin, exactly the chemistry you want your body to sustain while practicing Neville. When your space feels calm, your imagination deepens. When your imagination deepens, your emotional coherence stabilizes. Color plays a more powerful role than most mothers realize. The visual field is processed before conscious thought, which means color communicates directly with your nervous system.
Soft neutrals, muted greens, and warm earth tones reduce reactivity and allow the mind to settle. Strong or contrasting colors demand attention and pull the emotional field upward. When you design your visual environment intentionally, you make it easier for your body to enter the emotional state Neville describes. Your space becomes an ally, not a distraction. This is why creating a Neville corner is transformative. It doesn't need to be elaborate. It only needs to support the emotional signature of your final scene. A chair with soft light, a surface free of clutter, a texture that brings the body into safety, a scent that signals calm. When you sit in this space and enter the feeling of peace, your body recognizes the environment as part of the ritual. Over time, your nervous system learns. Here, we enter coherence. It becomes an automatic response. Mothers who incorporate environmental coherence into their Neville practice often report a subtle shift. They don't have to work as hard to access the emotional state. The space supports them. The body softens faster. The imagination becomes more vivid. And the baby receives a consistent emotional field that strengthens their sense of safety long before birth. When your environment matches the feeling, Neville's method becomes effortless. Your mind leads, but your space holds you. There is a moment in every mother's journey with Neville when everything she has learned suddenly becomes clear. It's the moment she understands that her baby has been responding to her inner state from the beginning, long before she ever practiced a technique or held a conscious intention. It's the moment she realizes that the emotional signature she sustains isn't just shaping her day. It's shaping someone else's entire introduction to the world. And when this awareness lands, something inside her shifts. She stops treating her emotions as background noise. She begins to treat them as the environment her baby lives in. You may have felt that shift already while watching this video, when you heard that the maternal nervous system becomes the blueprint for the baby's nervous system, when you learned that the womb responds to imagination, when you understood that emotional coherence is not spiritual poetry, but a biological language your baby reads with precision. These insights alone are enough to change the way you experience pregnancy. They reorganize your mindset. They bring the mother into consciousness, and they give you a sense of agency that many women never realize they have.
Neville's teachings often feel abstract until you see them through the lens of maternity. Then everything becomes tangible. The imaginal act becomes a physiological act. The feeling becomes a chemical signal. The wish fulfilled becomes a state your baby experiences in real time. When you imagine peace, you create it. When you embody calm, you transmit it. When you return to coherence, your baby learns stability. The impact is immediate, and the effects continue long after birth. This is the moment the video earns its value, because what you've gained here is not just information, it's a new frame of perception. You now understand that you are not waiting until birth to influence your child. You are shaping their world right now, from the inside out. And the emotional field you cultivate becomes the first form of motherhood you offer. This realization alone is enough to soften guilt, dissolve fear, and bring clarity to the whole journey. If this content resonated with you, even in one moment, anchor that awareness, let it settle. And if you feel called to mark your intention publicly, write in the comments, "My baby grows inside peace." Without breaking the experience, as you reach the end of this journey, notice how different your inner landscape feels from when you first pressed play. Not because your circumstances changed, but because your awareness expanded. You now understand the bridge between Neville Goddard's teachings and the biology of pregnancy. You understand that imagination is not a mental escape. It is a physiological influence. You understand that your emotional signature is not abstract. It is the atmosphere your baby breathes. And you understand that coherence is not a luxury.
It is the foundation of a peaceful baby and a peaceful birth. The method you learned here is not about perfection or spiritual performance. It is about alignment. When your emotions, your body, and your mental imagery move in the same direction, your baby experiences a world that makes sense, a world that feels safe, a world that welcomes them with softness instead of noise. And your birth begins to reflect that same coherence, a flow instead of a fight, a rhythm instead of resistance. Your inner state becomes a pathway your body follows. If this video supported you, deepen the experience by watching the next video I've prepared for you. It continues this journey into maternal consciousness, emotional regulation, and the spiritual architecture of pregnancy. Staying in this rhythm allows your nervous system to integrate the insights you've had here instead of letting them fade as soon as the video ends. One video builds upon the other, strengthening your ability to create the emotional field your baby will recognize as home. If you feel called to go further, there is also a guide available below, designed specifically for mothers who want to practice Neville's method throughout pregnancy with structure. It includes emotional exercises, sensory techniques, environmental adjustments, and a full process for sustaining coherence from conception to birth. Explore it only if it resonates with where you are right now. There is no pressure here, only support.
Thank you for staying until the end. It means you chose awareness over autopilot, intention over fear, and coherence over survival. You are not just growing a baby, you are shaping a world, and now you know how to shape it with peace.